I think I should just trust it. I think so. Looks good to me. Yeah.
Just stretch it to the size of the box.
To see what's going on. Oh wait. Oh, to be full screen. Got it. Right. We're not quite in the center, but we'll have to live with it. Okay. So let's see. Sorry, y'all. I just want to make sure you have backup. And I am recording all this, so let's see. Oh yeah, it's recording. All right, so we're gonna start and make it back full screen. Just make sure I didn't mess that up. Wait, messed it up. Okay. All right, now we're in business. So this is your Unity scene. This is not how yours are gonna come in. So your window will come in as a layout default. I really don't like this. I don't work like this, so I recommend changing it because I'm going to work differently. So I do window layouts 2x3. This way I can see my hierarchy, what's in my game, what's in my scene rather, the project folder, what's in the assets, etc., etc. So something very important here that I just want to point out, and it's a little bit off this scene, which is wherever you're saving your file, it's really important. So file, save as, my project is in desktop, my project assets. So I've set my Unity project to save to my desktop. It's important to know where your file, your project is, because Unity completely runs off of the files that it has placed on your computer. So you know how when you're in Photoshop or other things, you might just save your Photoshop file, there's one PSD file, you can open it up and you can count on everything being there. That is not true for Unity. So Unity made a folder called My Project, and I know you won't see this on the online recording because it's not the window, so just bear with me for a moment. So it created My Project, yours might also be My Project or whatever you named it. Inside of that, you have an assets folder, a library, logs, all of these folders that make up the entirety of the Unity interface. And Unity needs every one of these folders to run. The one you're going to populate the most is the assets. So right now we have assets scene. We don't have any other assets. Assets are things like game objects that you've imported, models, animations, it could be video, audio, fonts. All these things are called assets. There is an asset store in Unity where you can get assets, and that will all live here. So just really understand Unity is made up of a lot of folders, and you also can't move this folder. So once you've saved it on your desktop, you could move it and relink it, but you'd have to talk to me if you have some trouble relinking it. I don't want you to move your folder, think you've lost it all, and then give up. That's my point, and don't move it. There is a way, but it takes a few steps. Okay, so back to the scene. So we have the scene called sample scene. Let's just take some control over our project. Let's open it up. So you see that little triangle here. Click it to open it. And then you can hit the 3 ellipses next to sample scene, and let me do that again. So I want to rename it, but I'm not allowed to do that until I save it. So I'm going to save scene as, and we're going to name it. So I'm going to name it demo. I would like you to name it non-demo, right? Exercise 5 or project 5. My first Unity project, whatever. Mine is a demo. Yours is not. Very important. Don't type demo space my first Unity exclamation point project, right? So this is not good file naming for Unity because it runs off of scripts and it's very surface level. So this could cause a fatal error in your project. So you don't want to use spaces, and you definitely don't want to use special characters unless it's an underscore. So let me be a little bit more specific on what to name it. I would say I'm going to write demo. Then I'll write project 5 underscore, and then my initials, AS. So you could write project 5 underscore your initials. You don't want any spaces. You want to be extra careful. You'll put in no underscore. But basically, the reason sample scene was written with no spaces because it's important to not disrupt that naming convention because it could break the path of code to find your project. I know I'm saying a lot. Just try to remember the important thing is not to put spaces or special characters, but you can use underscores. Click Save. Okay, so here we have our scene on the left. On the bottom, on the bottom left, we have our game. And the scene is where you're going to build a lot of the work, and the game is where you'll see it happening. The view from the game is coming from main camera. If you double click main camera in the hierarchy, it will show you the main camera, where it's located in the scene. So here we're seeing something specific about main camera. So main camera has several qualities that you can change. It has a move that you can change, so you can click on the green, red, blue to move it. I do not recommend ever clicking on this area because you might think you're moving it a little to the left. Oh, that looks good, but when you have a lot of things in the scene, you'll see that maybe you moved it a little to the left and like 400 feet below the floor. It just happens with 3D space. So you want to use these 3 specific X, Y, and Z to move. So this is a good time to talk about the 3D aspect of this space, the immersive aspect. So we have an X and a Y, just like we do when we are using flat space, and then we have the Z, which moves us through space in that direction. So through. So other than the move or transform, we have rotate and scale. These are all important tools as we move through the project. So there's move, rotate, scale that you'll be using throughout. Rotate is a little tricky. I like it. You don't really want to rotate your camera, but you can rotate like different lines here. Hit Control Z or Command Z to go back. There's also the transform controls that show that you can change the rotation here. So if you know you want to rotate the Y by 90 degrees, you can click 90, tab, and you've rotated the camera 90 degrees. So these transform controls that have the green, red, and blue icons also translate to what you're seeing on the screen. Okay, now let's go over some things with the moving in the scene. So I'm going to make the scene just slightly bigger, as big as I can get it to be. And that's it for this view. And I'm going to go to this hand tool. So if you don't have a mouse, this hand tool is going to be really important. And that's because this hand tool allows you to grab and move the scene up and down and around. You can't really do that on the trackpad. Actually, I can because I have like 3 buttons on my trackpad, but I don't know with the touchscreen, so you all have different settings. So the move tool for me is a left click on the mouse, or you click on this and then you can just click once, with your trackpad. Right click, so I think that on the trackpad is like a double click. You can click and drag around the scene. So you can change your viewpoint from a single spot instead of moving your spot of point of view. So you're looking around from one point of view rather than changing your point of view completely. And then finally, just like zooming in and out, I can scroll to zoom in on my mouse, or for you, that's likely just two fingers forward on the trackpad to zoom in or out. Okay, so those are the controls. The best way to learn them is to use them, so we're going to move on and start using them. So, I never showed you what you're going to create. So I'm going to pause and show you one example. Oh, no, I was. Okay. All right, so we're back. So the question after viewing some of the other projects was, yes, we're using pre-made assets because we're not modeling. Window, asset store. So Unity has its own asset store, where you can search for all kinds of assets. And we're going to get there in a little bit. I'll start with terrain. I don't want you to follow me yet, but we will come back and look for terrain. And then you can go here to free assets, and it'll show you a series of free terrain assets. So no, we're not building out the structures ourselves. We're not scripting it or, building out the layers in Unity. We're beginning just to learn how to use Unity and then bringing in these free assets to create environments. Okay, so let's get back to Unity. I know in the video you're not going to see that asset store, but I'll switch that up when we get to it. So let's start. So I want you all to go to Game Object, either now or later. Just watch whatever you choose. So go to Game Object, 3D Object, and choose Terrain. So I'm gonna move through my screen here and see that I have a big terrain that I've created. I can switch my view to terrain by, clicking and dragging, using my mouse or trackpad to move through the scene, or I can click on this Y, which will take me to a perfect aerial view, an X, the Z, whatever you're thinking that might help you. So part of learning to work in Unity and 3D space, especially for the first time, is just seeing what works for you while you're creating it. So I might like to, I might never use these. I don't use these very much. You might really like to use this and build your terrain using this aerial view. I prefer this side view and a little bit of an angle. I think it's very useful. So this terrain is huge, and we'll play around with it at scale because we're not making a big project. But just so you know, that is your terrain. And then if you double click on main camera, there's your camera. So our camera is a little bit off of the terrain. We'll fix that in a little bit, but that's why you're seeing this view in the game. It's because your camera is placed at 0, 1, -10, and it says here in the transforms, and the terrain is at 0, 0, 0. Okay, so let's go back to terrain. So the terrain has a couple of things you can do to it. So once you click on terrain, there is the inspector. The inspector is like your properties panel. So in the inspector, you can start by clicking on create neighbor terrains. We're not going to do that, but if you wanted to keep making it bigger, you could just click, create new terrain, and continue to expand to build the world. So that's this button, create neighbor terrains. We're going to go to the next button over. So we have this paint terrain. Paint terrain allows you to actually paint textures on the terrain. Before we even paint textures, we can also raise and lower the terrain. So clicking on raise and lower the terrain, it gives you some instructions. It says left click to raise and hold shift and left click to lower. So you can kind of eliminate what you just did. You can see I have different brushes. So you have a brush with a very opaque edge, so not a gradient. This is going to create a stamp that's quite angularly straight. Something that has a gradient is going to be softer. And then you could do stars. You can kind of do whatever you want. This, you can combine them. Whatever you like. So likely your terrain might be a little bit mountainous. It doesn't have to be, but this is something you can play around with. And you could look at this Y and build out some of your, maybe you want a whole mountain range here. You can kind of start to see it in this section too. Well, this one got a little bit bigger, so I'm going to take it down. And then I want a series of rocks here. If you click and hold, it will just keep getting higher. But that might not be what you like, not enough control. So you might click and move. You can also change the brush size. So it goes from 100 to like 15,000 really quickly, so be careful. You know, we were stamping at about 100, so now let's do it about 400. You can see that's much bigger, more smooth. So you can have a very gradient-like sort of nice structure. You can build that out as you go. Again, change the brush size. Little. Build in, you can reduce opacity, which just like if you're using Photoshop, just means it's not going to be as, it's not going to build as fast or as, as fast or like fully, like it's lower opacity. It's even smoother than the gradient. You can also create a new brush. I'm not going to go into that, but there's always chances to write code on your own, write scripts on your own, create your own things. So over the course of the week, you'll spend your time working on that creation. So I'm going to go back to here. There's something else we can do. So if you click on Raise and Lower Terrain, now you can do something called Paint Texture. Paint Texture asks you to add layers. So if we edit terrain layers and create layer, we actually don't have a lot of textures here because we have no assets. A texture is an asset. It's an image file with a normals map. So we're gonna now go to the asset store to get that. So we're gonna go to Window, Asset Store, and this is when we'll search for terrain. Let me switch the view so you can follow along with me. Okay, so I don't think you can see. So the recording is not going to record the asset store right now, but that's okay. I'll describe exactly what I'm getting. So I'm going to type into the search tool terrain and free assets. So what have I grabbed in the past? Make sure it's free. Yeah, it is. Free terrain. We can grab anything and just play around with it. So does anybody have a recommendation? Show you kind of how to work through a free pack and look for things. There's also like Unity. You could look for things made by Unity, which can be nice. Oh, and Unity 2020 would be good too. So in the categories, Unity versions, filter it to Unity 2020. You can expand the publisher and type Unity technologies. And there's one, so let's do that one. That is a little bit more comforting, so you know it's going to work, versus if you get it from a different developer, it might have problems. I like to be a little risky, you know, with this and try whatever works with my idea, but we're going to just stick to this. So the exact title for the video recording, if you're not seeing it, is Terrain Sample Asset Pack. So click on it. Once you click on it, it's going to tell you, I think it's a download button. I've already downloaded it. And then once you download it, you'll click Open in Unity and then Open Unity Editor. And this will take you back to the Unity Editor. That stinks. Need it to capture. Okay. And then when it opens in Unity, it will open up your package manager. I want to talk about the package manager. I just want to try to record this, but it might not happen. It's okay. So you're all here anyway, except for one person, so. Okay. All right, so we're still recording. So even though you can't see it in the video, what we're looking at is a package manager. If you don't know how to find that, you can go to Window at the top toolbar, Package Manager, and then it'll open up. When you download something from the Asset Store and then click Open in Unity, it will open in the Package Manager. So you can see I have a lot of things in my Package Manager that I've downloaded. So all I need to do is go to the Terrain Sample Pack in it, so you could find yours too. You'll hit Download and then you'll hit Import. I've already downloaded mine, so all I have to do is hit Import. When I import it, it'll Unity Import Package. And I'm going to bring everything in. It's not too much stuff, but just know when you're bringing in these asset packs, you're saving it to the assets folder, and it's taking up space on your computer. So if you download something that's like 2 gigabytes, it could like take up all the space on your computer and won't let your project run very quickly. So just be mindful if you're bringing in assets from the asset store later to make sure there's the size is not too large, and you can look at those kind of things here. So this is large actually. I know my computer can handle that, but maybe yours can't. Oh, I haven't had anyone have a problem, so let's just do it. Import. Okay, and I'm going to X out of the package manager. Did anybody's finish? Okay, good. So in the assets folder under project, you'll see that under assets, a new folder was created called samples, terrain assets, and you can continue opening it, right? So there's a lot of different textures in here that we could use, as well as normals, maps, textures, etc. So we don't have to necessarily work from the assets folder. We're going to go back to terrain in our hierarchy. We're going to choose paint texture, make sure we're on that, and then edit terrain layers. Terrain layers is here, right under paint texture, terrain layers. Click edit terrain layers and then create layer. Here you can choose one of these textures. So if you choose this, it's not going to be totally complete. And my knowledge is a bit limited in how the textures, and maybe Naeem can help us with that. But, well, I just know that I'm going to bring in this image because it will come with the normals maps. But if I bring this in, it won't work as well. That's what I know. Why? It needs all those components to work, right? Okay. So you're not going to click on this green one because that is just a part of this rock. Yes. Yep. So, oh, and I accidentally did it. So you'll edit terrain layers. I'm going to remove this. Create layer. And then you should have these. So make sure you're on paint texture.
Are you on the right?
Are you on razor lower terrain or are you on paint texture? Okay, let me see. But for others, just pick what you want. I'll choose the moss. What? Okay, all right, good. So I'm going to choose the moss and then double click. And you see that if I click on the layer itself, it will actually show me what it's doing. So it has a diffuse, and then it doesn't have a normals map or a mask map. So I can add that myself by double clicking normals map. And this is the normal. And then the mask map, I can also add, so it's just right next to it. So I chose the moss, so there's the moss normals and moss mask. And that should have made it a little bit better. It's a little bit repetitive if you scroll in. So there's some things you can do. You can make it metallic, and I'm not super helpful here. You can smooth it, potentially, and you can change the tiling. So if I want it to be bigger, I could change it from it's 2 by 2 to 20 by 20, and that's a lot nicer. Or I could change it even bigger, like 30 by 30, and then you have an even more detailed shot. I'm not going to make it that big. I'll probably do 20. So then you can see this texture is in the ground. Okay. So that's a really, it's applied to everything. It's there. That's interesting. You can mix these up by adding more terrain layers. So you can create another layer and say you want to put, that's moss. Let's do sand. So I'll add sand layer. Click on that. Make sure you add the normals. I don't know why it's not all adding for me. Sometimes it does. Sand normals, and then the sand mask. So just go down to sand. And it is a pop-up, so on the video, if you're not seeing it, just know I'm double-clicking on the select next to the normal map and then mask map, and then searching through the select texture 2D to find that area. So I have sand, sand normal, sand mask. And so this doesn't automatically pop up onto the terrain like it did before because it's now a paintbrush. So we're painting the texture. The first one automatically gets added to it. Second one you can paint on. So you see if I start clicking, it's that's sand. So before I do that, I might want to do a test patch and look at my settings. Oh, I can change it after the fact anyway. So again, maybe let's try 20 and 20, just so it's at the same scale. Cool. So, and I can always remove this again by holding, oh, I can't, but I can paint over it. Okay, so let's say I wanted to do it from an aerial view, and maybe like I want this side of my whole terrain to be sand. I could work at the scale by making the brush size bigger. Let's do 5. And I could brush on sand. So somehow this mountain range changes my climate and I have sand. Maybe I'll add increased opacity and a smaller brush size here. So that doesn't really seem to be changing too much. Oh, there we go. So I can create a little diffusion here. Okay, so we've created, and I'm just gonna keep going a little bit. You're gonna have a lot of time to work on this, so I don't want you to try and do it all now, but let's just add a little variation here as well. I have to remember to bring my opacity back up. So we'll add this here, like a sand pit. Okay, we'll save. So there's a lot more we can do with terrain. We can add bushes, we can add trees, we can add our objects, but for now we're going to leave it at that. I want to shift for a second before we go to that and show you the camera control. So I want everybody at this point to file, save, and then we're going to create the things we need necessary to get our camera in. So first thing we're going to do is go into the hierarchy and right click. We're going to create an empty game object. So it says create empty. Click on that. We'll call that main cam. You can put spaces, by the way, in this section, but I'm just not going to. Main cam. And then we're going to click on our main camera, and we're just going to turn it off for now. And so what it means to turn it off is to uncheck that box next to main camera. So now you have display 1, no cameras rendering. Okay, so we have this main camera. It's an empty object. We need to add what's called a rigid body to it. So we're gonna take a step back. We're gonna click on our main cam, not main camera, but main cam. In the inspector, we'll click add component. And then we'll start typing in rigid body. Click on rigid body. So what's good to know in the inspector is that a component is essentially a script. So Unity has like different components and a huge library of controls that you can use to edit these things. So you could edit this you could basically write your own rigid body component. You could do that for almost everything we do, but they have a lot of it for us. So we're actually not going to be doing any scripting. But just so you know, scripting is a huge part of Unity. You can create new scripts, and there are probably already many scripts in here. Yeah. So we're gonna, okay, rigid body. Rigid body has a mass of 1. It has drag, angular, use gravity. That's all fine. We might have to turn off use gravity depending, but it should be fine. So rigid body should allow us not to go through objects in our scene. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is go back to the asset store. So we'll go to Window, Asset Store. It'll open up in a new window. And we're going to download the modular camera. Type in modular camera and hit free. So this isn't by Unity, but I think it's good. And we're going to use it. So it's called, the exact name is Modular, M-O-D-U-L-A-R, First Person Controller. That was for the people online. Okay, so once you download it, you'll open it in Unity, open Unity Editor, and it will open in your package manager. Again, you will hit download and then import. Import again. Oh, I do want to uncheck one thing. I want to uncheck the demo.unity scene because it's already giving you a hazard. So when you take a step back, when you hit import, it's going to show you all the items in the project. And we're going to uncheck demo unity. You can even uncheck the, oh no. Oh yeah, you can uncheck the whole demo scene, which saves us a lot of space. So we're going to uncheck the whole demo scene, just bring in the first person controller folder, including all these items listed underneath it.
For some reason, it's not letting me have any food. It says $4.
Well, let me see. And then I hit import. So, see how I have that 3 thing, you got 0, 0. Okay, so I just, if anyone has a problem finding that modular first person controller, then just talk to me. So that's imported. So now in the game, for people who see this online or if you're looking back, that's the name, so modular first person controller. You're going to double click on that folder, so I'll repeat that. In assets, in modular first person controller folder, there's a first person folder. It says first person controller. This last square, that if you click on it, it shows you it's a prefab. So you can use this prefab in your game. So we're going to click on this and drag this into the hierarchy. You can already see that the first person controller is showing us a viewpoint. Okay. So there it is.
I'm getting an error.
Okay.
Cycle prefab nesting output.
Oh. You are somehow in. So try to use Yeah. We're going to continue. So we have this main cam and first person controller. The main cam is an empty object that we want to link to the first person controller, partly because the main cam is going to create the protective layer outside of the camera that helps us not move through objects. Yeah?
Sorry to make you repeat this,
Mhm.
but how did you get the main cam username? Sorry.
It doesn't matter actually. So the main cam could be anywhere.
No, I mean, what I mean is like I don't have the main cam in Iowa.
You have main camera.
I have main camera, but you have the second main camera.
Yeah, so I did a right click, create empty,
Okay.
and I named it main cam. Did you do that? Did you make an empty object? Okay, so make an empty object and add a component. Look up for a second. Add the component called rigid body. Okay, that's what the main cam is. Okay. Okay, so main cam is in the middle of nowhere right now, so we're going to double click on main cam, type in 0, 0, 0, and hit enter. Tab, rather. So now main cam should be right here at 0. Our first person controller is also at, well, 0, 2, 0. We're going to make them both 0 for now. So we want the first person controller and the main cam properties to be the same. So Charlie, if you see Charlie K, main cam 0, 0, 0, rigid body, first person controller here. My warning is about Visual Studio. I know it's not relevant, so I'm going to X out. Just read those in case if they're red, it could be a problem. And always file save periodically. I always do. So Control S, file saving constantly. Okay. So now what we want to do is nest the first person controller under the main cam. The way we do that is click on the first person controller and drag it onto the word main cam and release. Now you can see main cam has a down arrow, and if I close it, first person controller is gone and it is being controlled by that. It is the parent of the first person controller. So now I want to click on main cam, go into my scene, I'll give you a moment to do this, get in a good angle, hit the move tool so that you can see all 3 arrows, so this tool, move. By the way, the shortcuts for move is W, rotate, E, scale, R. W-E-R on the keyboard. So you can move through these 3 very quickly. Same in Maya. Okay, so we're on move. We're going to take the red arrow and move it towards more of the center of our terrain. And I'm going to hit the Y aerial view. So I hit the Y here, zoom out so you can see where you're moving. Let's go to the center. I actually even want to get into this sand pit. So I'm going to do that. You might be like, oh, well, we're underneath. That's true because I raised my elevation. So that's when you'll take this Y and also raise that up until you see that your scene is, that you're somewhat on land. I'm going to hit Control Save, and then we'll do a test. We're going to click Maximize on Play in your game console. So this Maximize on Play very subtly goes from dark gray to light gray. It means that it's on. So when you press play, it'll go full screen. And then you'll know you're in play mode. And you can look around with your mouse and you can move. W, A to the side, S to go backwards, D. I think it also jumps. Yeah, not a huge jump, but a jump. And probably just some other things. I can show you where to find out where. I will. Okay. So we're moving in our space. We have landed. Very important part of this project. And I'll pause in a moment so we can I can help you. But also, if you're not following along perfectly, don't worry. Again, there's a video. You'll have time to edit this. We're going to stop the demo soon. So if you've lost your mouse like I have, you can usually hit escape to get it back. Very, very important is if you want to continue editing, you always press play again. So play to exit play mode, play to enter play mode. If you hit pause, you'll feel like you're back to normal, but anything you do, such as create empty or create 3D object cube, whatever, anything you do in this pause mode, once you say, oh, wait, I'm in pause, I need to get back to my normal, I hit play, that's gone. So all your work could be gone. Say you work an hour in that pause mode, it's all gone. So please try to always, that's why I have it maximized on play, because if you don't, you can very easily think you're, in pause mode, but actually you're in play mode. So that's why I have maximize on play on. Okay, so now we're moving around the scene. I want to show you in main camera. If you open it up, first person controller, joint, play your camera. That's where we can see our camera settings. Well, first person controller has settings. It has the camera setup, it has field of view. That actually doesn't change here, but You have movement setup, sprint speed, sprint duration, sprint cooldown, sprint bar, enable jump, space. So left shift is the sprint. You can sprint. Space bar is jump. Crouch is left control. You can change these too. You could hit numbers, delete, backspace. All these different things you can edit. There's a head bob. You can disable the head bob. You can enable the head bob. You can change the speed of the head bob. All these different things. In player camera, there's this thing called the skybox. So this is this background here, the sky that you're seeing. You can change the skybox to be a solid color, for example, if you wanted. Or you could go back to the skybox and we can add in a specialty skybox. So that's one thing. You can also change the field of view to make it like much more wide angle or like a much closer angle. So you start at, it defaults to 60. So that's some things you can change. To add a skybox, you do need to add in the asset store. So I'm gonna do this a little bit of a shortcut, so you won't be able to follow along as much, but just, you know, you've done it a few times, skybox, free. Make sure it's not too big. This is a pretty big package. I'm just gonna import this one image of a skybox. I'm gonna hit download. And so I'm in my package manager, import, and just so you remember, I got to my package manager from window package manager. I'm gonna import this. And then so you know how to get assets from the asset store now. I want you to figure out how to add a skybox. So in player camera, you can add a skybox by going to add component, skybox, and then here click on that white and gray looking target, and you can see your skybox is here, and voila. So you have this skybox. It creates a lot of change really quickly. Another thing you can do is play with the general lighting. So I don't talk about too much lighting in this beginner tutorial, but you can click on the lighting here, directional light that automatically comes with it. You can move it, which I don't know which will have a huge effect. It won't. However, you can rotate it, which will have a huge effect. So if you click rotate, you can actually change the quality of the color, which sort of feels like also changing the time of day. The way the shadows are moving, all of that stuff. You could also animate this. I'm not going to show it, but if you looked up how to animate directional light in Unity, you could figure out over like the course of your experience going from night to day. So you could choose these qualities. You could see that here it's showing these options of the mode, which is mixed, intensity. If you increase that, it would be very bright, too bright. So 1, 2, 3, it goes up very quickly. You could change the color of the light, so you can make it more pinkish or like blue. This is, going to be white, almost opaque, and this will be like a more blue. So you could change a lot about the lighting just using that directional light. Let's do maybe like we have a pink sky, so let's do like, looks like twilight hour, golden hour a little bit. So I need to update my Visual Studio, but pause this. Okay. So we have our camera, which is very cool. We're moving through the space. We'll save it. So at this point, again, you can go into Assets, Store. I'll just go there again briefly. You could look for Standard Asset Pack. That might be a good place to start without breaking anything, like bringing in something that's maybe too complicated. So there's a Standard Assets Pack for Unity. It's free. Open it in Unity. Download and import. So I'm going to go over two more things today, which is bringing in objects from this standard assets pack, and I'm going to go over adding in some trees. so you could, and bushes, so that it's more, you can curate the environment a little bit better. I think next week I want you to fully develop your landscapes with all the tools I've shown you for the beginning of class. And then in class, we might do a very small animation tutorial. It's pretty simple. You just learn how to like animate a ball in there, and then we'll build our projects and finish up next week in class.
So we don't have to like submit everything by.
You don't have to submit everything by class, no, but you do need to have it done, the world done.
So we just want all of our assets placed, basically, is what we're asking?
All of your assets placed and your terrain built. Your skybox put in, all of those things that make your world unique. So think about the quality. So I have import, like the life on Mars was a theme. If you come up with a criteria for yourself, like maybe you want it to feel like it's an alien place, okay. Maybe you want it to feel like a really lush forest or a beachy place with palm trees. That can help you find assets and curate a little bit better.
Some project files on Unity are not saved to the cloud, right? Like if I were to go on my PC and try to make something that's a little more powerful than what a laptop can do, I can't like bring it back to my laptop. Can I?
No, but you can, that project folder, you can package it, like zip it, upload it to your Google Drive or OneDrive, and then download it onto your bigger computer and just relink it from Unity, yeah.
I think that'd be easier using like an Apple computer than a laptop.
It is a lot easier.
Yeah, I think on my PC, my PC could handle this way better than a laptop.
Yes, PCs can handle this way better than laptops. Okay, so that's done. This is a gaming laptop. That's why it's big, and it's got a really good graphics card. It can handle this. It goes pretty fast. That's what I got it for. Okay, so a lot of my standard assets are unchecked. Let's see what I have checked. Pretty much nothing. So let's see what I want. Let's click all. I'm gonna bring prefabs. Oh, it's not letting me. Wonder why. Let's see, something's going on. I'm gonna delete my main camera because I'm not using it, and this is saying aircraft wing. This is asset standards. GUI text has been removed. Use UI text instead. Okay. I'm not editing code right now. So this is things that could happen. So whatever I'm bringing in, I believe what it's telling me is I need to change the user interface it's using. Unity recently switched over, so I'm gonna try to just delete this, one part of it, the utility, and see if it doesn't break everything. It kind of did. Okay, I'm going to delete this. I don't want to mess with that. I don't want to start going into scripts. And neither do you, unless you do. Maybe you do. Let's just see. Okay. Okay, I believe sample scenes came with this, so let me delete that. This is good if this could happen to you. Let's delete this too. I think these all came in with that package. Yes, I'm back to my very familiar error. Okay, so we took those steps back. That's good. Release 2020, 2018 or higher. It should work. It doesn't for me. So you can still try it. It might. Let's say I'm just going to bring in a, what do I want to bring in? Let me just try to find like a free building. It's a very broad search thing, by the way, and some of these are going to be not totally prefab. So let's see. Desert building. That's cool. I'm going to check 2018 or higher. It might be too old. And it comes in pieces. I'm going to do something much simpler, like a, can somebody give me an idea? Car. Free asset. Low poly sports car. Arcade car. Let's take this. This looks cool. I should probably put Unity 2020 in. Yeah, let me go back. Because if it's too old, like we might get that problem again. So Unity 2020. Let's do this. This one feels comforting to me. So I'm going to add to my assets. Open in Unity. Open Unity Editor. I know for online you won't be able to see this on the video, but you know what I'm doing. I'm in the package manager. I'm downloading it. Importing it. Importing it. I'm having the same issue. What is that? Let me rename this. I mean, this shouldn't be an issue. The only thing I could think of is something in the script is looking for a main camera. It's just a warning, so it might not be a big deal. So we have the car low. It comes in as a folder. Let me just make sure I'm recording. Yes. Okay, then open that folder. This you never want to open, just by the way, because this is not the model. This is a demo scene. And if you open this, and I'll do it, I'm going to save my project. If you open this, you're going to go to a whole new thing and you'll be like, what's happening? This isn't working. That's not good. You know, all this stuff. So if that happens, all it means is you opened a new scene in your project. So you can go to File, Open Recent Scene, Sample Scene. Okay, that's not there either. So I'm going to click Open Scene, and I know under my project, Assets, Scenes. Where's my scenes? Here it is. So Demo Project is there. Although this shouldn't be there. This should be in Scenes. So either way, I'm going to open it. Don't save that, and I'm back. So don't open those, but if you do, that's how you fix it. Here is the object that I'm going to bring in. So now that I know where my camera is, I'm going to want to bring things. I want it to be a little bit closer to my camera. I mean, you can build all around the terrain so that somebody can explore different things, but I'm going to start so that I don't have to travel too far. So I'm going to zoom into this area, and I can actually click and drag right onto the terrain and release. You can see that it's very small compared to my terrain, so we can just like easily scale it with this. This is the only time you're going to click on the middle one to scale proportionately, and there's the car. You know, what's fun in Unity is you don't have to make it to scale. You can do all kinds of crazy things. So we can make this car actually be part of the mountain. Like it got stuck there ages ago. So I'm going to move it into the mountain, out of the mountain, back out of the mountain, and rotate it down. And that to me is more interesting than just seeing a car, right? And so maybe I'm building out, I haven't really thought about my project, but maybe I'm building out a junkyard scene. That's kind of cool, junkyard. So there it is. Something about this though that you'll see is that there's no colors on it. So the car we downloaded was bright red. that is going to be in the textures and materials. So materials are here. We can download, we can click and drag some of the materials. You might want to look back at the asset store to see the way the car looked. It says some things here for you, like the chrome is here. That didn't work. I think the chrome is for the wheels. But you can take your time on that. Yes.
I downloaded assets from TurboSquid. Those in the thing.
Yes.
They're supposed to be .fbx, right?
So .fbx is an animated file. You can still use the prefab from that, but you'd have to do an extra step to get it to animate.
What's the default file type?
.obj. If it says .obj.rar, just know rar is a zip file, and so you can Google or download on a PC rar to obj rar unzip thing. I think on Mac you can't. Oh, so you have to unzip it.
Because the ones I have, they're all FBX or RAR. So
Yeah. If it says obj.rar, you can fix it. If it's just .rar, it might have an obj in it, but it might not be. It might have an FBX. Yeah. Okay, so you can continue to paint the car. I'm not going to spend too much time on that, but just so you know, that's there. The textures, I actually don't recall. I'll get back to you about the textures, but for now, that's how you use the materials to add onto the car. Okay, so there's that. So there's the creating the terrain, painting the terrain, adding in objects, coloring objects, and the last thing I'm going to show you today is this terrain option called Paint Trees. And paint details, by the way, work similarly. So paint trees, click on that. It says no trees defined, edit trees, add tree. I have no trees. Again, from the asset store, but I have it in package manager, so I'm going to go to that. Do I have trees in here? I don't remember. Free trees. Oh, that's not good. Okay. So you'll find where you can get free trees. I got free desert plants, so I'm going to import those from the package manager that I got from the asset store. Those are imported. So it came in under terrain, trees. So now when I go back to terrain and I click edit trees, add tree. Oh, I didn't click this yet, but I knew I didn't have trees. So you hit the three, the circle, right? The circle with the dot in it, the target. And I can actually click a model to be a tree. So let's choose the desert plants first and click add. So you can do a couple things. You can paint them on. Again, that's just like a painting button. You can change the brush size to much bigger, although that's not much more trees. So you can kind of like choose where to put them. You can make it thicker by making the brush size smaller. You can increase the tree height, but not too much. It has a pretty, I think it only goes up to 2. But so it can double, but not a huge difference. And so we can lock that back in if we want. Color variation I haven't done a lot of tests with. But what else we can do is mass place trees. So if you have like bushes, you can mass place this as 10,000 trees you could place, and it'll just place all over the map. So maybe you do that, but you actually don't want it at all on the sand. You could, with the instructions here, hold shift and click to erase. You could hold shift and erase and make the brush much bigger, so you can do that very quickly. So you spend some time sculpting, you know, see this, it's like a fun digital paint tool almost, the way that we're using it. The other thing you could do is you could edit trees, add tree, and say you wanted to add one of the bigger trees, dead tree. I'm going to add that, make sure I'm clicked on that, and I want to put this near my car. So I can go to the car, that's called Tocus, and I can go back to terrain. I can build a tree there. Say I don't want to do that many trees though, I could make it a lot less. That's too small. Okay, so I could keep building it like this. That's one version with the terrain. So this is good for like, you know, mass producing things. So let's say you just wanted to bring the tree in and change the scale. You can still do that. It's a prefab. So you can click on the tree, drag it in, and see that your tree is located here. You can hit scale and you can scale it. So then you can start to build out that. And now I can only think of Harry Potter. Right? Wasn't there one tree in a car? Okay, so there it is. There's one tree. You can copy and paste this, edit, copy, edit, paste, Control C, Control V, and make doubles, and then move them. So I copied and pasted it, then went to move and just moved it away from each other, and really start to build things out. So there's one of my little grass that are all the same, but this one's going to be different. This one's going to be large, and then a bush, and that one will also be large. So now when I press play, I've started to create an atmosphere. Oh, and I'm inside one of my bushes. So something else we haven't done. I wonder. So not walk through things. What you want the tree to have is a mesh renderer. So this one does. So I don't think I can walk through this plant, but the terrain also needs to be have a renderer. So there's a terrain collider. We need to add under terrain a terrain mesh collider. And the material mesh terrain. Okay, I have to look into the terrain, but let's focus on dead tree. Dead tree doesn't have a mesh collider. Essentially what we're creating is the main camera has a rigid body that we don't want to interfere with the dead tree. So we don't want it to go through. So we're going to add component, mesh collider. And what we should see is the mesh collider have the material of the tree. So if we don't see that, mesh collider, mesh, it's the mesh. So let's test it out. I think it will work. Maybe I'm wrong about the material. And then we'll think about that. Or too low to the ground. And going through all the bushes. Oh, it's so far. We're going to fix that. So I'm going to move one closer to us so we don't have to travel. So now that the tree has a mesh collider, we shouldn't be able to go through it. Yeah. This clipping can be fixed, but we might not need to. So just know you can't go through it if you add the mesh collider. So you can add the mesh collider to all of these. Again, mesh collider, it automatically inputs the mesh for you, so that's good. Mesh collider. So it has mesh renders and everything. You need the mesh collider. It has it. This needs a mesh collider. Oh, this has an animator. I wonder what the animation is. And then mesh collider. Oh, did I multiply it? What did I hit? I don't know. Did anybody notice that? All these trees got built? Yeah. Yeah, that was really weird. Because I just hit mesh collider. Oh well. And then the terrain has the terrain collider, so it should be working, but it's not. So what I am going to do is make sure that my camera's actually a little bit higher, and hopefully it doesn't fall. It is using gravity, so it might. Okay, so what we're going to do is uncheck gravity in the main camera and hope we don't fly away. Oh, it's still falling. So, and we're going through things. So, the camera has this rigid body, and it should have, did I forget something? Rigid body. I should have a box, oh, I need a box collider. That's what I need. So, let's see if this works. I'm gonna fall because I am high up. Oh no, still not going. So the box collider allows you to edit this box around the camera. So it's this green thing. I'm gonna go over it kind of fast just so we can move on. Make it a little bit bigger. So we have to add a box collider too. I forgot. Rigid body box collider. Let's move the camera back to the ground. And maybe into like more open space. And remember, in the camera, there's also like a capsule collider. I didn't show you this, but there's a capsule collider and you can edit it. That's in the first person controller. You can make it like wider, taller. See if that works. If not, I'm gonna have to do some research, but that's the last thing I'm gonna show you today, I promise. I know it's a lot. Okay, so we're here. We're rotating, we're balancing, not quite sure what's going on. Can we walk through plants? Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna look into that. I'm also going to hit Control Z and see if me messing with the capsule collider did anything. So let me press play again. Oh my goodness. Hit back. Okay, so don't mess with the capsule collider. This must have been what happened to my other project. Okay, so don't mess with the capsule collider. On the main camera, I'm gonna hit gravity again and see if that's my problem. Okay. I believe it happened when I touched capsule collider. So if I go back, my capsule collider used to be below the ground and now it's way above the ground. So I'm gonna keep. Okay, I'm stable. Don't mess with the capsule collider because it, I guess it's grounding me. I have to look up with the terrain and how to, because theoretically it should work, but well, for whatever reason, the rigid body on the camera is not reading the terrain collider. So we'll look into that. But I'm going to stop there. So that is your tutorial. This will be online, and just remember, every time I talked about the asset store or the package manager, you couldn't see it, but you can get there from window in the top bar, asset manager, asset store, or package manager, and that you only have to complete your terrain for next Thursday. Next Thursday we'll finish adding in some audio, potentially animation, and then building out your project and posting it to the site. So that is all.